Okay, so hopefully I haven't confused you too much, but you can see what I'm getting at. That we've got all these definitions that exist, or interpretations of the definition. Every country, every organisation, whether it's schools, governing bodies, will be using their own interpretation to support their own agenda. And all I'm trying to get across to you is that you have to understand what the original definition means, so that we can make sure whether we are a teacher, coach, sports scientist, conditioning coach, that we are fulfilling what the appropriate use of the term is. So we're not teaching it, it's an outcome of what we do. And as long as I can see kids are becoming motivated, becoming more confident, they're developing knowledge and understanding, they are becoming more physically competent, and as a consequence of that, they are taking responsibility to engage in more physical activity opportunities. Yeah, physical literacy. That's what it's about. So I think hopefully the message coming out of this, that just some of these misconceptions or misinterpretations, can it be measured? And again, I go into schools all the time. I'll see national governing bodies. I'll see countries that are coming up with physical literacy tests. It can't be assessed. We can look at where someone is on their physical literacy journey, but it shouldn't be tested and say, right, this is your physical literacy score. We can look at how someone is progressing on their physical literacy journey, but we just got to be careful that we're not testing it. Because what happens when we test it, we come up with what we call a norm reference score or a criterion score, and then we're comparing every other person within the group to that score. We know everyone's never going to achieve that perfect score, and they shouldn't be compared to that perfect score, because every individual is different. They are all on a different journey. So this is an example. Canada, some researchers in Canada have come up with a test of physical literacy. Now, there's some aspects of this I quite like. You know, they're testing physical activity, they're testing physical fitness, they're testing knowledge and understanding, they're testing fundamental movement skills. And they're trying then to amalgamate all the scores together to come up with a score of physical literacy. However, that would suggest then that is that person's physical literacy score, whereas it doesn't take into account that they're on a journey, and that is going to fluctuate and change as they grow, develop, get older. So again, we just need to be careful with interpreting physical literacy and measuring it. So I think key messages coming out from some of the definitions that we've seen is that the idea of the International Physical Literacy Association forming was that we come up with not a one-size-fits-all definition, because I'm not saying that's the case, but we come up with a generally accepted definition that most countries, most organisations are familiar with. Now, what they do with that definition is entirely up to them, but as long as they recognise that there's key attributes that need to be in a definition, whether it's cognitive, affective or physical, or whether it's recognising it's about motivation, confidence, knowledge and understanding, competence, responsibility. They're the key features, attributes that should be in any definition. Okay, so just for this sort of task, what I want you to do, having looked at the definitions I've given and what I've talked about in this lecture, where do you see, or what do you see as the competing subjects or areas that are all competing for inclusion of physical literacy? So I'll give you a start. One of them is coaching. So coaching is trying to adopt the physical literacy and say, right, We want physical literacy to be a part of our national governing body strategy, of our UK sport strategy. So all I'm trying to say is that there's all these organisations out there that are trying to take physical literacy but use it and interpret it for their own agenda.